Welcome to the Reds Reviews podcast. We are brought to you by paperhead.com. Right now there is a promo for $3 for 3 months. That promo does include everything on the plate. It is a premium promo. So check it out at paperhead.com and let's get on with the Reds Reviews podcast. All right, how you guys doing today? It's Red again for the week. Yes. So we got a lot of stuff going on. There is the actual NFL movement is going along just fine after they decided to scrap the preseason. We're about mid-August right now, which is, good and bad at the same time because it's a little boring without the stuff going on. However, the NBA bubble is functioning perfectly, working perfectly. Ratings are struggling, but they're definitely not testing positive for COVID. They're staying safe as far as it goes. So that's important. Now, talk about the MLB for a second, just to cover them, because we did actually quite a bit on them last week, considering that they're the only ones that are really experiencing kind of peaks and outbreaks or whatever you want to call it of testing positive for the flu, COVID. And yeah, so as it goes, NBA is running smoothly. The playoffs do start next week. We are excited about this because, it's sad to see the Spurs fall and they miss their 22 years straight of making the playoffs. But there's, and also to the Suns, they went 8-0 from a 0% chance of making the playoffs to going 8-0 and then getting knocked out. So it's unfortunate, to see teams like that fall after a kind of Cinderella story start developing and then they get knocked out. So it's going to be, the Rockets, the Thunder, the Lakers, the Clippers, and it'll be interesting to watch. I think it's going to be a really good thing, regardless of whatever is going on the planet, to be able to watch sports and to be able to watch these guys, play their profession. And I'm actually kind of amazed at the way that, because going into this, I don't know if anyone remembers, it was, there's obviously still a bunch of stuff going on in Chicago, Portland, and Seattle, and, all around the country, there's big protests, and sometimes even it gets to the riot level and burning buildings and all that kind of stuff. So, I think morale has slowly been being restored over time, which is what sports do. They help a nation such as ours continue to move forward in directions of family and integrity and respect and, competition, because it is vital to have competition in normal society. That's why monopolies are a problem. That's why things that don't have debates and or voting as far as democracy goes is a problem. We need these things. We need the secondary opinions on what's going on. So that's why sports are a good thing, because it's a conglomerate of people who are all different from all over the place, and they all come in there and play. So let's talk about the college football. Speaking of issues, college football. The Big Ten opted out. Big 12 just opted out this morning. And there are teams within those divisions that are not okay with that. Nebraska being one of them. They're the first and loudest to speak out against what the Big Ten decided to do. And what that means is that they're actually looking at going and playing outside their division for the year. And the Big Ten is not having that, considering that they're the almighty say in all the different things in their division and their class. And they're threatening if Nebraska goes to play with anyone else, like the kid with the basketball that kicks it out of the court because they get picked last. They're saying that Nebraska will be kicked out of the Big Ten. Now, I don't know if I'm reading the politics on this right or even care. But I do know that if you're somebody who rules with an iron fist, eventually people leave or take over. And if the kids want to play, they can sign waivers. There's all kinds of formats for this that can eliminate the concerns, because They always come back with the concern. It's for the students. It's for the students. We don't want them to be put at risk and their families too. Well, let me tell you, if a kid doesn't get drafted because he doesn't play this year and loses his opportunity to be a pro in the NFL, the one of the highest paid sports leagues. Obviously, there's soccer players and baseball players that get bigger contracts up until Mahomes. It's going to change his life in a very negative manner. He'll probably end up working at Kinko's because, not to say that most of these guys aren't scholarly as well, but yeah, it just changes the opportunity. And that's what people need to keep in perspective. It is one thing to be safe. It is one thing to try to mitigate the risks on the field because you can't control 60 players and their depth chart. Well, maybe if you look at the tests and the death rates and everything else that are going into this, it's kind of on them to be able to make their own choices for their life. It's not up to you, Big 10 and or Big 12 or any of these Pac-12s to make the choice for these players. And you'll see a lot of people leave because of this. You'll see college players transfer out, and they are right now. There's a guy that was supposed to be playing for Ohio State. He is now looking at playing somewhere else. Even though he was dedicated to it. Ohio State's another team that actually is looking at playing somewhere else in the time frame because they're just too good and big enough to not play against the other teams if they go into this, as I'm calling it, a new division. Because this is what should happen. If the NCAA comes down the pipe and says that none of these teams can play or should play accordingly because the NCAA is the NCAA, what do you do? What do you do if the big guy, quote unquote, comes down the pipe? And what you do is you form a quote unquote militia. But I wouldn't call it that. I think it would be a great name for a college division to call it the CFB militia, or however you want to do it. I don't know, but anyway, it would contain the SEC and ACC, and any other division college that wants to come in and play a season out. They can schedule the games quickly. It's not hard to schedule something. Getting the logistics down is going to be the struggle on that. But what are the impacts on that, and what are the repercussions coming from the NCAA and yada for regulation purposes and all the other things that go into the bureaucracy that has been created in this sport? If the kids want to play, coaches want to play, schools want to play, let them play. Do not stick your fat face in there. That's all I'll say on that. That's all I will say on that, because as far as what the nation needs, the president agrees. I know most people don't agree with the president, accordingly to what you'll see on the media, but the president agrees that college football should play. Same as the NFL, and as long as that's the case, I think we're good to go as far as that goes. And I know for a fact that the SEC has already said that their commissioner has said that they are going to fight this until they're the last team standing if there's no one that's going to play, and they'll even play within their own little division by themselves, which is a good division to watch, even if that's the case. A couple of games, you end up with what I think it would be like a total of 6-7 games total that they could put together that wouldn't be rematches over and over. So yeah, that's the current standings on the college football. It's been a rough week watching a lot of people cave accordingly to be safe, and we'll see how that goes as the next week comes along. And as far as everything that is coming out I actually got a look at the poker platform, which is cool. They are still keeping it on a cash table basis. There was a possibility of them running a test tournament for us that I could use, and what I'm hoping is that is launched and ready for us to be able to create some tournaments intermittently in the next week, maybe. And also, I did get a look at the new live dealer provider that they have. I think it's called Fresh Deck, and they have a very good looking platform. As far as what it looks like, it's the same thing where I have to write in for requests on reporting, That's not new. They haven't added any, functionality as far as what's on my agent interface. But, there's good stuff coming down the line for how this is going to be. So as the season comes up, I'll tell you this much. My head count in the live wagering, because of the NBA, is back to where it should be, more or less. Total head count is down a little bit. But that's the positives along the line. So let's take a step back and look at what this means for you and me. What does this mean for us on our sheets? What it does mean is that players will look at events a little bit differently. If you've got a certain amount of games, it's just like in the NFL where there's 17 weeks and you know that you're only going to have 4 or 5 games in your conference or your local area that you're going to be able to actually enjoy because you grew up there and you see this. You're going to take those events a lot more seriously. You're going to be the type of person who may bet huge on it if you have the funds. That will be the other secondary issue, is what does the economy look like? The U.S. is bouncing back pretty well. I do know that the job loss count is actually going backwards now. It's starting to go down, whereas it was just a climb for many weeks. And that does affect the player volumes and anything going into that. But if these, the major college football teams play, the NFL will play. How long it'll play, nobody really knows. They were talking about adding Saturday games across the sheets. So we're back in full swing, more or less, come September. And that's the beauty in this. So the rough patch, the patch of fear or having to look for other means of income, such as the digital casinos and the live dealers and all that stuff. If you've been a book, I wouldn't recommend going full all eggs in one basket again, because this was a wake-up call for the average book, that you got to start looking a little bit deeper into what else is there to play. What can we create as far as action and entertainment? But that patch is over for at least a few months. We're going to get through Christmas, November, and it will be a November to remember this year. I will tell you that much. And as far as what goes on our side, we've obviously been in the gray for several years. And it's not anything new to function in this light, but I have a feeling that because of the restrictions and because of regulations and because of different things, people are waking up to the amount of control that's going on within their area. And it'll be interesting to see what happens. So let's look forward to it. And, next week I'll be touching base and seeing how everybody's doing again. And if you do follow, like, subscribe, and all that, it is much appreciated. Because as far as getting out there and doing something for us on this side, I'm trying to be that a little different in that front. I've been trying to get this recording out and do some stuff that I don't think anyone else is out there doing. So appreciate you guys. Hope you have a great week, and look forward to it. Thanks for tuning into the Reds podcast, brought to you by paperhead.com. For all relative promos going on right now, please check them out at paperhead.com. Also, opinion expressed on this show are not that of paperhead.com. And if you do like what you hear, for all the agent news coming up, please like, subscribe, and follow. We will see you next week.